Hey y'all, Rich Moses here. I'm here to tell you that you can get free Steam gift cards by using your phone like you normally do. With App Bounty, you can download various apps and then use them to earn gift cards for Steam, Amazon, iTunes, and more. You can head down to the description for a link that will work on any iOS or Android device. You can use my referral code wtfmoses to get free credit towards your first gift card. I purchased the patent for an exchange student, which I've been told is perfectly legal. He's been playing Final Fantasy 15 and using other apps non-stop to earn rewards, which, to be clear, have been donated to me and are not eligible for taxes. Stop spending your hard-earned money on items that don't actually exist and start using App Bounty. Don't forget to use my referral code and then take that saved money and then give it to me. I deserve it more than you, because I'm rich.
Hey y'all, Moses here. Today I'm going to be covering 5 more mistakes that I see players make on a regular basis, and mistakes that I've made and corrected since I made the last video on this topic. I've made a ton of guides on what you should do to get better, but I've found that identifying mistakes and improving on them can sometimes be more impactful to a player's overall success rate. So with that said, let's get started. Number 5 is underutilizing your kit. Pubg is a shooter at its core, but gives players a huge array of potential options for engaging an enemy. A trap that I often fall into is underutilizing things such as grenades, specific weapons, and some attachments. Now, don't get me wrong, I think frag grenades are used all the time by most players, but since the patch, I think some parts of the grenade system have been underserved. The ability to prime a grenade prior to throwing it now gives players the ability to accurately flashbang players and also gives them very little time to react. The flashbang itself isn't perfect, but I've said before that audio information in Pubg is equally or sometimes more important than visual information. If, for instance, you want to flashbang someone in a house, even if they aren't blind, the ringing may prevent them from hearing your footsteps and give you an edge. With that in mind, if you're in a house tending to a downed teammate, a Molotov on a stairwell can give you the precious seconds you need to finish the res. Molotovs are also great for zoning enemy players and forcing them to move in a certain way. The grenade system is still evolving and can sometimes be inconsistent, but practicing now will make you that much better later. There have been a ton of videos on how to properly utilize the various scopes, and some call into question the accuracy or consistency of the different optics. Something to consider is carrying more than one style of scope if given the opportunity. The 2x scope on a Kar 98 is one of my favorite combinations up to 150 meters. The aim point is simple and precise, whereas the 4x can be difficult to master under the base 100 meter zero or at longer distances depending on your experience. The 8x is great for long-range shots, but reduces overall visibility drastically. Use the right scope for the right situation to maximize your effectiveness with any weapon. 4. Tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is a broad term, but in Pubg there are 3 main types of tunnel vision that I see on a regular basis, and sometimes engage in myself. The first is the most common, and that is tunnel vision while looting. I frequently see enemy players moving like bees from one house to the next, looking at the floor and looting. It's very important to assume that there will be enemies nearby, especially in a popular loot spot. Blindly running from one house to the next is a great way to get an unexpected shot to the face. Loot tunnel vision goes beyond getting surprised when you're looting. If you land next to an enemy, your first priority should be a weapon. The level 1 vest or helmet is definitely going to be helpful, but only if you survive long enough to kill an enemy. Don't stop to pick up an AR suppressor when the guy next to you is racking a shotgun. Hi. Ooh, thanks. The second type of tunnel vision is something I'm frequently guilty of, and that's enemy tunnel vision. Often I'll be scoped in on an enemy and 10 seconds will go by, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at my own corpse because some player has come along and flanked me. Optics are a powerful thing, but they reduce your vision and situational awareness drastically. If you watch high-ranking players, you'll notice that they are in their scopes only long enough to either shoot or to briefly observe another player. Don't get so focused on an enemy or on a specific fight that you lose track of what's going on around you. Managing your surroundings and maximizing vision are skills every player needs to practice. One tip here is that after you're done firing at an enemy, take a quick look behind you and your general surroundings to see if someone is sneaking up on you. The last type of tunnel vision is simple and can seem counterintuitive to some players, and that is tunnel vision on downed enemies. If you down a player in a squad or a duo game, your first priority should be on the players that are still alive and able to shoot back, not on the player who is knocked out. Focusing intently on finishing a kill can cost you and your team meds and armor, or in some cases, it can cost you the round. I'm not saying to forget about down players if you're able to kill them, but to prioritize team success over kill count. 3. Giving away too much information. In the first-person meta, visual information comes at a cost, and audio information becomes much more important because of that. Identifying bad habits in this sense is critical to improving. Here are a few common examples of mistakes I see. The first is shooting when it's unlikely to secure a kill, and holding peaks or angles in a dangerous way. Try not to shoot at vehicles when you can't easily take out the driver, or at a player that could easily get to cover and can't be killed quickly. Other enemies could identify where you're shooting from and surprise you, or the vehicle might swing back and put pressure on you as well. How and when you hold angles or lean out at enemies is of critical importance. If you peek out of cover for long periods of time, or hold a peek on someone equipped with a sniper rifle, you're inviting disaster. I have taken critical damage from an enemy and have still won the fight because the person had bad positioning, or held a peek for too long. I've also been in situations against players who constantly apply pressure and give me very little room to engage. These types of players are very hard to deal with, and the fight becomes more of a chess match. All it takes to increase your effectiveness is the ability to identify advantages and take them. 2. Predictable late game movement. There are countless guides out there that cover winning in the top 10, so this is not what I'm really looking to tell you. However, one huge component of winning games is movement and positioning. I'm going to cover a few things that I've noticed about myself and what I've learned to anticipate from enemies when it comes to moving around in the late game. The first is the tendency to give up a good position for one that is close to the edge of the circle. The circle provides 180 degrees of potential security if you put your back up to it and hang out. That security is great for the current play zone, but when the circle changes, you may be forced to move to the exact opposite side of the next play zone. If you haven't planned ahead, you may be running through an open field or having to face down a player that is taken up in the only house left in the next zone. Thinking 2 circles ahead is a good standard to set for yourself. The chances that the new play zone will be within 100 meters of the circle wall is drastically lower than if you're closer to the center of the play zone. Identifying and crashing the best spot in the next zone is a hallmark of players at the top of the leaderboard. The second thing that I observe a lot is that players will prefer to shoot the gap on the next play zone when moving to secure a spot. This is a little vague, so let me show you what I mean. I can say that the probability for at least 1 or 2 players to move into the wedge between the new and old play zone borders on guaranteed. That doesn't mean that this path isn't going to be the best way to travel, but if you decide to follow that path, you need to expect players both ahead and behind you. If you're the lucky one who happens to have that advantage already, you should be looking out into that gap for incoming enemies. Another example is the act of proning or crouching somewhere you think is safe. If you're in the top 10, danger could be literally anywhere at all times. Keep moving, even if it's on the spot, scanning for enemies and trying to bait shots. Shacks and small buildings are great for cover, but can be difficult to defend or escape from. Stay mobile and be ready to fight. And honestly, that brings me pretty easily to the number 1 mistake that I see players make. Number 1, reacting poorly to gunfire. This is far and away the biggest mistake I observe on a game-to-game basis. I'm going to go point to point here in a second, but there's one Pubg proverb that I live by, and that is, expect to always get shot to death, and you will never be surprised. This game can make anybody anxious, but you just have to remember that everybody has a gun, so getting shot is going to be a pretty regular thing. Here are some pretty simple but important tips. 1. Never assume it's okay to go prone on the spot you were just shot. 2. Everything you do after being shot should be related to identifying the source of where you got shot from. Look for shot out windows at the sides of trees and anywhere else an enemy might be. 3. That does not mean you should be standing still. Evade by zigzagging, crouching, or jumping while running. Every extra shot an enemy takes at you will give you a better idea as to where they are firing from. 4. If you can see the shooter, shoot back. I'm going to use TSM's Vis as an example since he's one of the top players on the leaderboard and one of the best players in the world. In solo first person, Vis wins about 25% of his games, which is an incredible statistic. Not to detract from his skill, but that also means that Vis gets shot to death about 75% of the time. So it would be safe to say that you or I are going to be getting shot to death at a much higher rate. If you reconcile this in your mind, reacting to gunfire becomes easier. I will frequently see players jump around blindly without giving themselves enough time to gain forward momentum or go prone after getting shot in an open field. These things equate to almost certain death. I'm not saying that getting frightened isn't a completely normal reaction, but let the fear of getting shot motivate you to constantly be moving around. Have a plan for how you're going to get to your next bit of cover. Take note of what's going on around you, and if all else fails, shoot back. Just a side note, jumping and firing in panic does not count as shooting back. So the biggest thing related to this topic is locating gunfire. I made a video about this, but I'll cover some things quickly. The first thing is suppressors are powerful. I die to them, so will you. That's okay. Reliably determining where silent shots are coming from can be extremely hard based on sound alone. A reminder also to play with stereo sound and to disable effects such as surround modeling and other things that enhance or change the sound at a software level. Stereo has been documented to be the optimal sound setup in the current state of the game. The third thing is to scan the area where you think you'd want to be if you were the shooter. That's a good place to start in addition to whatever other audio information you might have. And the last thing is to look at to see where the bullets are impacting if possible, and then trace the source from there. Really, this point is more about what you shouldn't be doing when getting shot at. The rest is kind of contextual, but if you comprehend some of the stuff I've been talking about and apply it to your game, your survivability should increase. Alright, so that's it for the top 5 mistakes that I see players make on a regular basis. I was really happy with the way the first video was received. I hope this video is just as well received, if not more. So if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave a comment down below. And like the video if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't, obviously. And don't forget to come check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/wtfmoses. You can also follow me on Twitter at wtfmoses. But for now, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And subscribe to this more channel if you like this kind of content and want to see more in the future. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching again. And until next time, I'll see you out there.